All right, everyone, we've got a session here to boldly go. And we've got Justin and Chad from CDL who are going to speak to us about publishing at CDL.
We're just vamping for 45 minutes. So, you know how like when you're about to leave the office for 2 weeks and you're trying really hard to get everything caught up, and then Andy messages you and says, "Can you do a presentation last minute?" That's us. We deserve it though. I'm Justin Gonder. I'm the Senior Product Manager for Publishing at the California Digital Library, which serves the University of California system.
And I'm Chad Nelson. I'm the Technical Team Manager for the Publishing, Archive, and Digitization Group. So I manage the software development team.
Do I just click? Yes. Okay, who are we? So, well, CDL does a lot of things, but I work on the publishing team, and our main service that we provide is eScholarship. And our eScholarship publishing program was started in 2002. We're finishing up celebrating our 20-year anniversary. And we're sort of, well, I guess not unique, but we're a combination institutional repository and library-based open access publishing program. So that means basically if you go to escholarship.org, you're going to see repository content and publications all on one system. But there's a lot of things going on in the back end. We're managed centrally at the Office of the President, but we provide services, like I said, to all 10 campuses, as well as our labs and research centers. And we do all of that in close cooperation with the scholarly communications librarians at each campus. The platform or concept was originally developed between CDL and Berkeley Electronic Press. B-Press took it and made Digital Commons, and we used the Digital Commons platform for a good long time. And then when I was hired on about 12-ish years ago, we were migrating off of that platform onto things that we built ourselves. And that was really cool at the time because we got to do everything we ever wanted to do that we kind of couldn't do with a vendor platform. But you'll see as the presentation goes on how we kind of painted ourselves into a corner there. One way we painted ourselves into a corner was we used OJS to manage our journal submission workflow. And we forked it up. So we decided to make a lot of customizations on a fork of our own, and then we could never, ever, ever update it without a huge amount of hassle. And so even still today, a good number of our journals are using OJS 2. I think I heard someone yesterday saying that they were on an embarrassingly old version of OJS. We're in the same boat with you. At the time, we migrated about 40 journals off the B-Press platform onto OJS, but we've really grown. We're now at 92 actively publishing journals, and I think our full catalog's about 120, 130 titles, including archives. And yeah, we're still on that old software. So I think a theme of this presentation is where we're headed in the future, because we have to fit it in with the theme last minute that what OA future is that today. So we're in this process that's been begun like a couple of years ago on how we get away from this bespoke software stack that we're using, or this collection of tools that's it's served us very well, but it's fragile and scary in a lot of ways, and how we move toward something that is community supported and open source. And I don't know why it took me until today. Andy, you probably got this earlier than I did, the fact that Next Generation Library Publishing has a Star Trek tie-in, like what? So Arcadia funded project that we've been closely involved with, and I roped Andy into a lot of things, is the Next Generation Library Publishing project. I could do a whole presentation on this project, but the kernel of it is that it's basically aiming to provide open constellation or whatever, a set of open source community supported tools to support scholarly communication needs like ours. So folks who want to do OA publishing, folks who want to combine that with an IR, and they want to get away from a commercial tool, but they want to have something that is robust. I've got to sneak that word in there in case any of my colleagues are watching, though it's far too early for them. And yeah, it seeks to basically take existing tools, not try to reinvent the wheel here, like Janeway, OJS, DSpace, but connect them in a way that you can have a unified display layer on top of that to view all of your content. And that aligned well with our goals to move our stack into a more community-supported open source software. And so the project matches up nicely with our goals. At the same time, I had met Andy in like 2018 at the Library Publishing Coalition Forum, Library Publishing Forum. I should know that better, I'm on the board. In Minneapolis, and he showed me Janeway, and I thought it looked super cool. And so I had won over my team and got them to install kind of a test copy of it for us to play around with. And then, like sort of fortuitously or not, we were approached by a preprint server who desperately needed a new home because of some fee restructuring over at Centers for Open Science. So Earth Archive needed a new home, and I thought, oh, I remember that presentation that Andy did, and he said that there was preprints functionality in Janeway, so we are totally set. But Andy said it wasn't really ready for prime time. So we kind of were working on in the background over a period of just probably less than 6 months. Andy like rebuilt the preprint side of Janeway from the ground up without really having to do that for us, so thank you. And we worked with the Earth Archive community to get them ready for this migration, and accomplished it in a really short amount of time, and they're very, very pleased with where they're at, though they have a very long list of wishes, and we talk with Andy about that regularly. And they were followed the next year by Evo Archive, who is in kind of a similar boat, needed a new home, needed something more sustainable. And so we are developing and growing now a sort of preprint community at UC and trying to figure out what that means for us, because this is a new space for us. And so, you know, we're learning just as much from these preprint servers as we can, and then trying to encourage best practices and navigate this new space. But back to journals. So those 92 journals, they have got to get off this really old system, but it is seemingly insurmountable task that we have to, you know, just dig into. And so what we've done so far is, as of a couple of years ago, any new journals that we started, including GLOSSA's sister journal, GLOSSA Psycholinguistics, started off on Janeway. I should asterisk here that we are using Janeway in a headless state, so we're still using our current escholarship.org to display the journals, and we're just using Janeway for the backend workflow, and that works great. Then last year, any sort of zombie journals that came back from the dead, or like, oh, hey, the whole entire editorial board has changed this year, rather than retrain them on the old system, we're moving them into Janeway. And then as soon as I get home, we're going to start chipping away at those 92 remaining journals to get them moved over. So the future of e-scholarship publishing infrastructure is definitely Janeway. And now I think we switch rather abruptly to tech talk.
Yep. Thank you, Justin. So yeah, as the lead of the software development team that supports our Janeway installations, I thought it would be really interesting to talk about the way that we feel like we are both using and then trying to give back in the way we do use it, and kind of what we see as the important parts of how we use Janeway. So we do a lot with plugins. That's the first thing I'll say. It helps us stay, again, plugged into the Janeway community, but it allows us to stay on mainline Janeway, not fork it in any way, because as we learned from forking OJS, it was a very painful process and not a thing we want to repeat again. So any approach that we can take that allows us to, you know, as soon as a new release comes out, install it and use it without having a painful merge process or, you know, merging in all our changes is great. And so the kind of plugin approach has worked really well for us. The second part is that, you know, that kind of leads to that. There's the saying often, I've heard in a lot of like community software or software development communities, where if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And so that's a really important part. We learned before we wanted to go fast, we couldn't get the functionality we needed through the software development process in OJS or another system. And so we just built it ourselves, forked it, went our own way, and we got what we wanted to get pretty quickly. And we got that nice little that good feedback of, oh yeah, we got that feature delivered. And then 9 months later, 12 months later, 5 years later, when you're still supporting that kind of hacky workaround, it doesn't feel so good. So there's definitely a trade-off there. And I think that kind of that thing really kind of gets to the idea that sometimes you do have to go slower and say, all right, we're going to work at the community's pace, because there's a lot of needs and a lot of requirements, not just what we want to do, how we want to do it, so we can work that way. But what's really nice about the plugins is that actually we can also go fast. We can drop in our own plugin and do the things we want to do really quickly, release that, push it to our dev server and onto stage, and have that functionality we want quick without losing the connection to the base underlying software. And so it's a good match. It's a good kind of it helps us find the right pace of keeping up with the community and staying with the community, but also still doing the things we need to do with the software development resource that we have. So what kind of plugins have we created? Our own kind of DIY Janeway. We have a CDL utils plugin that is essentially just custom management commands. Like we want to load 3,000 authors onto a preprint via a CSV file. We've got a management command for that would probably take a while to get into a release. But we were able to just in a couple days knock that out and update our preprints. Various other things, kind of batch processes that we need to do, we're able to add it in and keep moving forward. We have an eScholarship plugin, which is, as Justin said, we use a kind of headless version of Janeway for the front end. We use our custom JavaScript React application that displays our journals and displays our institutional repository articles. And we need to get the data into that somehow. And we use a plugin that pulls it out of Janeway or pushes it. I can't remember. One of the two makes the data available to our presentation platform, public presentation platform. And again, we could just hook that right in. We use a service called EasyID, which is the CDL's kind of DOI providing service. It's kind of a proxy to Crossref or DataSite, or it offers a few other things as well, but that's what we use internally. So it was really important to us to be able to integrate directly with our own internal service. Probably not something other people will use, but maybe. Similarly, we have a CDL has a repository, digital preservation repository service called Merit, and we are developing right now a plugin to push all the articles from the preprints servers to our preservation service, so that they are backed up as just part of our normal, or preserved as part of our normal process. Just
Apparently, we need to do that to 2 more locations.
Oh yeah. Then we'll So bronze over here. And then finally, the last one we've worked on is it's part of that transporter of getting the data out of OJS into Janeway. We had to write a few extensions to the API to have data come through in a particular way that we wanted. And again, we were able to extend it pretty easily with that plugin model. So it really gives us the opportunity to do what we need while still staying able to do other important parts like upgrade. So another thing that we are starting to do that is for us is starting to really think about how we run Janeway on AWS, or the Borg, as I call it here. And I know it's Andy's favorite platform for running software. He has told me in no uncertain terms how much he loves it. But personally, it's not my favorite either. But it's what we have to work with, and so we're definitely not the only ones that run our software on AWS. So for us, we see it as we want to do this for ourselves. There's a lot of benefits to be gained from it. Only running services when we need them, not managing services. and servers and having a easier way to get our changes out quickly. But we also think, if we take that documentation that we've created for how we deploy it there, what advantages we got, the kind of infrastructure as code that allows you to build that, we make that all open source. That is something that someone else in the community could use, either to learn from or to just completely steal and do it for themselves. So we kind of see it as, if we're doing it in the open and it's something someone else might be able to learn from, great. So we really make that important part of how we build our services, or how we're building our infrastructure on AWS. And so, really, it's ultimately about how do we keep growing our services without growing our tech support burden? As Justin says, we've got 92 journals, and we want to keep growing that. And we're not going to keep growing our tech team. And we have quite a few other things to support. So we really need to find ways to make that sustainable for our team and to maintain it in the future. And we really feel like leveraging some of these kind of services is going to help us do that. So that's something we're really pushing forward with right now. Another thing we are really good at is creating issues and feature requests and bug requests for the team. I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry. We've created 170 since 2020, and some of those are things we want, and we have a lot of wants, and so do our users. That's where they come from, and I think it's good. I in a lot of ways see that as part of our community service, and saying, hey, this is a use case for Janeway. Maybe nobody else cares about it, but I want you to know we care about it. Someone does. But also, being part of the conversation about what is working, what's not, how things can be improved. I think that is part of a healthy open source ecosystem and a healthy platform. So we're glad to be part of that conversation regularly.
I'm glad you didn't break that down by who among us did.
Oh, no. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. Definitely. Okay, but so on the other side of that, I also think we do like to put our people where our plans are. And so we have contributed 80 pull requests to Janeway since 2020. And so I feel like, as well as saying, hey, we'd like you to do this, we try where we can to, add things ourselves. And I think we definitely would like to kind of grow in our efforts there. And there's a few things that we've got kind of planned over the next couple of months where we feel like we could make a decent sized contribution. So 2023 should grow. There's still a few more months left. We could get that graph going the other way. So another way. And finally, another thing that we made a really conscious decision about was that we deploy and test the release candidates pretty much as soon as they come out. And Andy and Mauro know this because we constantly ask them when we tested them. And so, but part of that is for our own needs. Our users want those fixes, or they want those new features, and they've been asking for them. And so we want to get that out as soon as we can. And so it really benefits us to get that release going as quickly as possible. But we also, again, see that as good for the community. It's a different set of eyes looking at those features and seeing, do they work as expected? And also because we run in a slightly different context, in this headless setup on AWS with different custom plugins, it's a different context, and it's different data, and maybe even different size of data. We feel like we could run into things that maybe others wouldn't, and that's useful for, it might mean more bug reports, but we're really good at that, filing those. So, but we, again, see that as part of like our, one way to contribute back is to just put some of our resources towards that, because it benefits us and it benefits the wider community. So I do just have one kind of suggestion for the community that I'd really like to make here, and that's that I've noticed you've started giving the releases names, and maybe we could give it names from pets from our community, because we have so many excellent pets, as we saw in all those photos yesterday. So I noticed you've done like one or two, and I don't know where they're from, but I just want to suggest that as one option. And think that's all we've got. You got anything else, Justin?
Didn't use up all our time, so we have plenty of time for questions. I don't know how to look online.
Yeah.
This is Mauro from the Janeway team. So I saw the slide about the AWS stuff. I was curious about the container side of it. Are you going to use Docker Kubernetes or something like that to run Janeway in the future?
We probably looking at something like Fargate. There's a bunch of benefits there. We run a few things already in Fargate, so we have the knowledge of it. Also, there's some things that we'd like to do with kind of services that just spin up for like background processes that we'd like to kind of experiment with, probably something around like sitemap generation or something like that, where we've seen spikes in CPU load, and if we could offload that to a separate container that has no impact on the web, the web operator or the web container, that'd be great. Again, some of our other processes work in a similar way, so that's probably the way we're looking at it. I know we could do it with Kubernetes, but we don't have that expertise, and we're a small team, and we kind of have to rely on. We have a broader infrastructure team at CDL that supports all the other teams, and that's where their expertise is as well. So, kind of the way we went.
Okay, perfect. My follow-up question was about how would you do the management side and the background jobs, but you answered that already.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's a big part of it.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, what's really funny just on that is that Martin asked in the OLH WhatsApp if you were going to use Fargate,
Oh, okay.
because he has a Django Fargate package that you might be interested in, and he.
Hey guys, Jason from Michigan. I'm curious, so you have two development teams working together essentially here, the Janeway team and the CDL team. I'm just curious, like, how do you all collaborate well, and what methods have worked to? You're in very different time zones. I imagine you're not meeting a lot over Zoom or anything. So what works well for you?
Are we your most active? Are we your most active private channel or no?
Yeah.
I mute very often.
Andy keeps odd hours, so I actually was just getting into bed in my hotel room the other night and looking at, like, my watch shows what time it is at home, and I'm like, I've often sent messages to Andy around this time. And I also was just thinking yesterday too that, I don't know what your thinking is, but as you all scale, like, I'm sure you can't keep managing these private channels as one-offs, and so we may need to think about that. But I'll let Chad speak to like the tech coordination, but we've got a bi-weekly sort of standing check-in that we probably cancel it half the time, but it's a really efficient way for us to kind of run through a laundry list of things that are on our minds, and Andy can just answer them, and that probably saves a lot of Discord chat. But then there's still a lot of Discord chat. I feel almost like we all work in the same office, which is probably not healthy for you.
And I think the effective use of GitHub issues as an asynchronous communication channel is a really big part of that as well. That we are across different time zones, even just in our own team at CDL. So we kind of prioritize that. So just being a little bit intentional about how you do that, and writing it out rather than it needing to be in a Zoom call or even Slack or Discord, because that eventually scrolls up and you miss it. It's really easy to kind of do that. So where somebody's muted you, and so use the tools that are there for asynchronous communication.
I have told my team on occasion, Andy's on vacation this week, so just don't post anything in Discord or he'll answer it.
I have a problem.
Anyone else?
Hi, this is Joe from OLH again on the Janeway team. I was just wondering about your decisions. I don't know how long ago you made this decision, but to run Janeway as a headless architecture. What was the decision-making process, and maybe what were some of the factors in your tech team that led to that?
Well, the decision to run it headless is easy just because that's the way that we operate. We're very attached to our integrated front end. It's not that it's any prettier than Janeway, but because we are displaying content from multiple systems. So there's content coming in from the IR. We have a humongous installation of symplectic elements supporting our open access, institutional open access policies. That feeds in, the journals feed in. We get feeds from publishers. So all of that, needs to be on a single display layer. So that made the decision around operating Janeway in a headless state easy. But I think maybe the other half of your question is, why did we choose Janeway? And to Martin's point earlier this morning, very candidly, one reason is our developers don't want to work in PHP. So they're very excited to get off of that. I think that the ongoing, very collegial, collaborative relationship that we have with the Janeway team has only served to strengthen our resolve to continue down this path. I don't have anything bad to say about OJS. I think that the latest versions of it are really quite good. And I tell my users when we're migrating, the tools do essentially the same thing. You're managing submissions and peer review. But we like the way that Janeway does it. Our tech team really likes working with it. Anything else? You weren't really there for the decision-making part. One worry that was repeatedly sort of part of our analysis was the size of the OJS community versus the size of the Janeway community. But I think Martin was the one doing. We also have a Martin on our team. Doing the analysis there, and was like, well, the Janeway team itself might be rather small, but the Django sort of community is large, and there's a lot of support there, and that made our tech team feel more encouraged. But as we see, the Janeway community is growing, so no worries there.
Only thing I would add is actually we do use the preprints public front end, so that is we're not running in a headless state. That is the public, so it's kind of hybrid. But for all the journal publication, we are just using essentially the APIs and the backend. So
there's all these things that we're doing that I see like when Andy was going down all these new features that are our fault, like the better working in domain and path mode, because the headless journals work in path mode, the two preprint servers work in domain mode. We are planning to host both of our growing preprint servers and our almost 100 journals on a single install of Janeway 2. So hoping that goes well. For some other high points of things. Oh, one I was going to talk about, but Andy kind of covered it yesterday, but it might be really interesting to anybody who is also sort of working at a press level, is the introduction of the journal manager role, because we really can't migrate 92 journals over to the system and then trust them not to change their author agreement in ways that are in conflict with our own policies. So there were things we, in order to scale, need to be able to control very tightly. And so that's another kind of area of work. Cool. I don't know where it went.
Hi, Maria Teresa, System Media Lab. I was curious to know more about your journals, 92 journals, about which subjects, if you also run them internally, and how many users you have, how many papers, similar information.
I don't have those figures handy, but we have a very wide variety of journals. We have a lot of student journals. We have some one of our biggest journals in terms of readers and the way that they use our system is one of the premier journals in emergency medicine, Western Journal of Emergency Medicine. We brought on combinatorial theory recently, which was a flip from Elsevier. We have the sister journal de Classe. We have a lot of humanities titles. As a library-based publisher, I guess I can reflect here and maybe ask Jason to weigh in, but like when I started at CDL in 2011 or whenever it was sort of like we were so excited to take anybody who wanted to publish a journal with us. It would be like, oh, you want to work with us? Amazing. And then you can sort of see on a graph where it's like library publishing caught on, and we actually have had to start saying like, hold on, we are at capacity right now. And now we get to be a little bit more choosy about which projects that we take on, but the applicability of that to your question is just that we don't have any sort of like one theme of journals. We have a real mix, and I'll have to look and see, but the output is huge. I know that our OJS user database has about 15,000 users in it. And so that's authors, reviewers, editors. It's probably more than that because I got that figure from years ago. Do you have anything to add about like library-based journals? I'm gonna Phil Donahue it. Hold on.
I think we've had a similar experience. We're a little more choosy now too, and maybe it's because we've seen some things happen over the years that we can see red flags now. There's just one editor, they're really excited, but they don't have clear plans. They can't commit to publishing an issue every year, that kind of thing. And we've seen those journals fail over the last decade or so. We didn't know about that. We didn't know anything when we got started. So yeah, tend to say no to things more now too.
I could talk more about that for the rest of the day. Anyone else have questions? And if you have follow-up questions, I can look at data for you.
Can I give a shout out for Frontiers of Biogeography?
Oh,
that's an interesting title because that's actually a society affiliated title as well, the International Biogeographical Society. That's got a lot of interest at the moment because there's been a big journal revolt, one of the commercial biogeography journals. So I think that should be getting a bit of love at the moment.
escholarship.org/UC/FB for Frontiers of Biogeography. I think I probably know all 92 of them.
That was right.
We do grumble a bit about CDL, but we like working with them really.
Alrighty, thank you very much.